Hey everybody, it's Derek with Shoreless Skies. Thank you so much for checking out our stream tonight. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for checking it out as well. Tonight we are talking about our new game, which we are kickstarting now. It's called Broken Cask. As you can see, I think I'm pointing the right direction. The cover art is amazing. Claudia Cangini did an absolute bang-up job with that. And I think that the cover art alone is what's helped us to reach our Kickstarter goal so far. So if you haven't checked it out yet, we are going to go for about another week for the Broken Cask Kickstarter, which is, of course, a solitaire innkeeping game. And I'll talk about what that means here in just a second. So we're running through next Friday. And tonight, I wanted to show you a little bit about how the game works. So I'm going to be running through the in creation and character creation process. I'm going to play at least through one session. Occasionally things can take a turn and it may end up being two sessions if, a temporal rift opens in the common room or something, and ends our first session a little prematurely. We'll just have to see what happens and if the dice are being kind to us today. So with that, I'm going to be, we're going to get started here in just a second. And as I'm talking, I'm going to go through some of my design decisions and some of the reasons why I chose to do what I did with the rules for the game. And also talk a little bit about, what the book's going to be like, just to give you guys a sense of what's going on, what you're in for with the Broken Cask, okay? So with that, let's play. All right, so first thing you're going to note here, I got all of our random tables pulled up on my phone. Reason for that is everything's a work in progress. So even the lovely innkeeper's log, which you see right here, which Paolo has been working on, still a work in progress. So this is not the final look. The random tables are going to look a lot different. We're going to get you guys a nicely formatted PDF, which you can use on your phone like I'm doing now. You can print it out to put it up on your computer screen, whatever you like. So that's what I'm going to be going from. So if you see me swiping hastily, it's just to get to the next random table, whichever I need to do. Let's see, what else? I have my lucky dice here. I have my cup holder / dice tray with, of course, the white tree of Gondor. Always a good luck. I've got a little D20 here, not because this is a D20 game. It's not a D20 game at all, but because we're going to be hopefully raking in lots of gold for our inn. And I like keeping track of things with a die rather than constantly erasing stuff. I don't have one of those fancy art school erasers. We got the music kicking. We are enjoying some tunes by the Lonely Mountain Band, which if you're watching on YouTube, the link will be in the doobly-doo, so you can check them out. What else? I've got a little something in my Hobbit mug here. It's been a long day here in beautiful Atlanta, GA, and I'm ready to kick back and head to the inn. So with that, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them. If you're watching on YouTube, make a comment and I would love to address any questions or concerns you have. Other than that, I'm kind of ready to play. So we're going to check it out. So the first step of any session, and if you're like me, it's your favorite step, is creating the inn. And so the first thing we have is perhaps, again, the most important thing, which is creating the name of your inn. And to do that with any of the big tables we have, which is pretty much just inn creation and a few other tables, we use a D66. If you're not familiar with what that means, what a D66 is, I don't have a 66-sided die. That would be insane. What I do have are 2D6. And what I like to do is use two different colors. These are actually from the One Ring RPG, which is why they're so fancy. When you're rolling a D66, one die will be your tens place in the number, and this will be the ones place, and we'll generate a number which is I will check against our random table here to find a wonderful, appropriate name for our inn. So let's get started here. So our inn's going to be called, so I got a 52 there. It's going to be called the Flying. Now, if it's a proper inn, it's got to have two names, right? So the Eagle and Child, the Rose and Crown, all of that. So this is going to be the Flying. Don't judge my handwriting. Something. 56 is going to be the Flying Wolf. So we're going to go on down and have a pint at the Flying Wolf Inn. To be the Flying Wolf Inn, Flying Wolf Tavern. I don't know. Let's be the Flying Wolf Inn. I like that. The Flying Wolf Inn. These are not copyrighted, so if you have a business starting up, you're going to open up your own B&B or public house, you feel free to take the Flying Wolf. Just make sure you sell a copy of the book at your establishment. Okay. Next thing we got to do is figure out where our inn is going to be located. Now, this reminds me to remind you that the book is full of ways you can kind of fudge the rules. So when you're playing a GM-less game, especially a solitaire game, you can fudge it, right? If you've ever played any kind of solitaire game, if you've ever played solitaire itself, the card game, we like to fudge the rules here and there. So what we roll is not gospel. So if there's something you don't like, the book makes it clear which items it's okay for you to fudge with that won't mess with the rules. One of them is the location. So we've got a 2d6 roll that's going to produce the location for our inn. But, if you're playing it, you've got this inn cooked up in your head. Maybe you have, one of the many, many books out there about making an inn, and you want to use those, you can use those as well. The text is going to make it clear which are vital to the rules and which are not. But this is a 2d6 roll, so let's find out where our inn is going to be located. The Flying Wolf is located, so 2 + 2 is 4, in the middle of nowhere. Okay, that should be interesting. I'm going to put, as I'm imagining, like some kind of badlands or a desert. So I'm going to put desert in parentheses, just in case that comes up later. Okay, same thing with the appearance. It's another 2d6 roll to get some ideas or inspirations for what the interior of our inn looks like. Let's see. All right, we rolled a 10. It is sculpted from a single piece of stone. So I'm imagining like just one, almost like a cave in the middle of the desert where all the pieces are just one massive piece of rock. I wonder who made it. Okay. That might have to change. We'll see. And the rest of this stuff is essentially to get you inspired, to have fun, and to inform the stories you're going to be generating as you play. So let's do our type next. So an inn is an inn, except when it's not. So even historically, inns and public houses and taverns have always had an association. And so when we roll for our type, that's kind of what that is. What kind of people are hanging around in this inn, and what are they doing there? All right, so I've rolled a 6. This is an intellectual house in the middle of nowhere called the Flying Wolf. And who are the people that are hanging around this intellectual house? Well, of course, you got philosophers, writers, religious thinkers, that kind of thing. So maybe this is some kind of like retreat when the university lets out in summer and all the professors are sick of their mundane students. And they escape to the Flying Wolf to talk about trigonometry and, the strength of the Tao. Kind of like those coffee houses you always hear about in Paris in like the late 1800s, early 1900s in Barcelona, where all the amazing ideas of our last century were produced. It was an intellectual house. They're probably not producing much in the Flying Wolf Inn besides maybe a good brawl here and there. All right, what are we cooking here? So the next thing we're going to do is have a look at our signature food items. This is another one of those things like if you've got some kind of crazy idea or a supplemental resource, you can kick up your own, but I think we got some pretty funny ones here too. All right, so I rolled a 7. A citrus dill amber ale. Ooh. If it sounds gross, it's because it is. But it's a fantasy world. So somehow they make it work. The tastes are different, right? Out in the middle of nowhere. Citrus dill amber. What's our signature meal going to be? Let's see. I rolled an 11. which is, of course, a Hydra head salad. Everybody's favorite, the Hydra head salad. So with these various characteristics that I'm jotting down, these are going to pop up in the rules from time to time. A lot of time they're just going to inform the task at hand. So if you're cooking, you might have to make that nasty Hydra head salad, and that option is strictly customizable. So it's based on what you have created here at InCreation or what you kind of dreamed up in your head. Same thing with guests. Sometimes you have to base who is walking into your inn on the guest type you just rolled, but we'll get to that in a second. All right, what else have we got going on at the Flying Wolf Inn? It's a band name. I called the band name, by the way. You can have it if you're creating a pub, but you can't have the Flying Wolf if you're starting a band. That's for me. Okay, this is actually a 1d6. Let me try that again. Ooh, gambling. So our entertainment, the Flying Wolf Inn is known for hosting degenerate gamblers who are also the great philosophers and thinkers of the world. And that's okay. If you got any hot ideas for what kind of gambling we're doing, make sure you say it in the chat so we can figure out if we're slinging dice or playing cards or something. We'll figure it out. Okay. What else? What else is going on here? I've rolled a 4 on our unique services table. And so this place has natural holy magic. So, I mean, the Flying Wolf Inn has it all, if we're going to be honest. You can come and have your intellect enlightened. You can waste all your money at the craps table. And, you know, if you're possessed, you got a ghost haunting you, you got undead following you around, we can take care of that too, man. Okay. And the last two are probably my favorite. The first one is an anomaly. There's something weird going on at your inn. We're going to find out what it is. How you like that? This is perfect. Luck of the dice. There's a live demon dealing cards in the back. Somehow he's immune to this natural holy magic. Maybe we'll discover how that is later. Okay. And the last one is, of course, I mean, what's an inn or a public house or a tavern without some kind of stray aminal roaming around? Hopefully we'll just get a nice cat. We got a large chameleon. I have a feeling this demon card dealer put the large chameleon in. I don't know. All right. So with that, the Flying Wolf Inn has been created. I think we have a very weird, interesting establishment we're dealing with here. And now we're going to figure out who actually we are, or I am, I should say, as the innkeeper, and then who works there. So I'm going to flip the page here. And I'm going to start by rolling in my name. You know, same thing I've been saying. If you got a name you like that you name all your characters, you can do that. Otherwise, we have another D66 roll to figure out what our name is. All right, so I am going to be Lark. $34. Harvest Wing. I'm not crazy. You know, I'm not crazy about that name. That's not zazzing me tonight. Harvest Wing. Let's try again. Free reroll. 44. Trollhorn. Now we're talking about it. Lark Trollhorn runs the Flying Wolf Inn. What's our race going to be? So the next thing we roll for is race. It's another 2d6 roll to figure out who we are. A dwarf, of course. I keep a troll horn in my beard. All right, next we roll for clothing to see what our appearance is going to look like. Oh, just a plain tunic and trousers, nothing fancy. I think I sweat through all my fancy clothes running around dealing with the inn. All right. Now, one of my favorites, the Innkeeper Quirks. Rolled a 9 here. Oh, this is fitting for a dwarf. If you don't spend at least one day a month underground, you go crazy. Must be underground. And okay, so now we're actually getting into some mechanics here. When you roll for the background of your character, you get a little bit of fluff, a little bit of fiction, and then you get to bend the rules a little bit based on that background. So let me roll to see what that is. And then I'll tell you a little bit about what these abilities do. They're not going to make a whole lot of sense until we actually start playing the game. All right, so I've rolled an 11. Lark Trollhorn, proprietor of the Flying Wolf Inn, is unfortunately, he is a magic school dropout. Wasn't any good at magic school, but he was really good at running an inn for some reason. Maybe he should have been in accounting. The ability that couples with that background option is being able to train my staff on the cheap. So one of the actions you can choose when you want to upgrade your staff is the train action. We call it a special task. And normally that costs you about 5 gold, but this is going to cost 3 instead. That's kind of like my special power here. The last thing we're going to roll for are the stats. Now, as the innkeeper, you're very busy. You're not going to be running around brewing all the beer, tidying up all the rooms, things like that. You only get to show off your stats really once per session, unless you get one of these special abilities that lets you bend that rule. That's kind of the fun of these kind of games, is breaking the rules. But when you do, it's almost always a good thing, because the innkeeper stats are almost always going to be better than the regular staff. So I'm going to roll for my stats to see what I get. The 3 stats involved in the game are your body stat, your typical like strength, a physicality stat, your heart, which is like charisma, and of course your mind, your intellect, your thoughtfulness, your critical thinking skills. Pretty standard RPG stuff. So I've rolled a 3, which means my body modifier is going to be +2. I rolled a 6. That's very nice. So my heart modifier is +3. Those of you familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse may recognize some of these stats. That was kind of the inspiration for the stats. You can never go past +3, which is standard fare in Powered by the Apocalypse games. That goes for you, the innkeeper, your staff, any heroes you hire to go questing, that kind of thing. So a lot of the modifier terminology and a lot of the role notations are taken from the Apocalypse world, because they're kind of too good to not use. And then the last thing we're going to do as the innkeeper is find our starting gold. This is one of the things I got a fair amount of feedback on, which was we don't want to start the game hamstrung. Okay, so before it was less. And so now the standard rule is to start the game with 4d6 gold, which, if you're crazy, you can start with 2 or 3. It's just going to be a little bit harder to get your inn off the ground if you don't roll super well. So we're going to roll to find out how much money we have stashed aside. I think, well, let's see what happens. There's a 9. It's 8, 17. Okay, 17 is not bad. That's a good little chunk to start with. I think Mr. Trollhorn maybe took his tuition from the previous semester at magic school and decided to stash it in the inn. Okay, so that's our innkeeper. That's Lark Trollhorn. I'm the proprietor of the Flying Wolf Inn. Magic school dropout extraordinaire. Love being underground. Generally all around nice guy. Before we go any further, though, we got to find out who is working here at the Flying Wolf Inn. You start the game with 2 staff to play with. You can hire up to 4 after you upgrade your rooms and find a little money to pay these guys with. But you automatically start with 2 to give you plenty of actions to go with when you kick things off. So we're going to start with the name again of our first staff member. This is going to be Ella. This is Ella the Laureled. Oh my. So fancy. I wonder what they're about. Ella the Laureled. Laureled, of course, meaning laureled. Okay, let's find out their race. This person is an elf. Oh boy. Fancy name, fancy race. Let's see. And then the last thing we roll for is their role, R-O-L-E, at the inn. So what their job is. So I'm gonna whip these characters up. Then I'm gonna talk more about the role situation here in a second. Okay. So this is a 9. This person, she's a hunter. Female hunter. And the roll lets you know what their stats are. So her starting stat for her body is 1, heart is 1, and mind is -1. Not the best critical thinker, but she'll get out there and she'll shoot a bunch of boar so that we can have a nice roast for dinner. I've drawn 2 bubbles for her morale. Let me generate the second staff member, and then we'll talk about what all that means. And then we'll actually get to the game. But I'll tell you what, generating all this stuff is actually some of the most fun for me. All right, our next staff member is Takanos. Nice Greek name. Takanos the Slow Coach. I already have a little contrast there. All right, let's see what their deal is. This is going to be a halfling. Okay. And their role, Takanos sounds male to me, so he's going to be male, is the gardener. Wow, we just hit all the stereotypes. We got a dwarf who's got to be, we got a dwarf who's got to be underground. We got an elf hunter who is called the Laureled, and we got a halfling who's a slow coach and a gardener. You saw, maybe you didn't see it. The dice are right there. The dice don't lie. We just hit all the fantasy stereotypes in our first phase here. All right, so he's our gardener. Okay, so what's his stats? He's got 1 morale. Okay, let's talk about what all this means for a second, and then I think we're ready. I think we're ready to actually start playing the game. So, first of all, anytime you create a task in the game, it's going to generate, or it's going to have a difficulty assigned to it. And of course, the difficulty, like your standard RPGs, is any of these stats with a number from 2 to 7, even higher when you get to kind of like the epic guests who can show up. And then when you roll, you apply those stats, standard fare. You apply those stats to your roll to see if you've hit or miss. Okay, if you hit or if you miss, it ends up telling you what the consequences are. Oftentimes, those consequences will be to lose morale. Like you're supposed to just bring some beer to this, half-orc noble. You missed. You dropped it all over his pants. He's super mad at you. You're just devastated. You lose morale. If your morale goes away, you become exhausted, which means unless an effect tells you that you can come back, you're out for the rest of the sesh. The rest of these come into play as consequences as well, and will have some other kind of effect depending on what's going on. Okay, so that's all the rules I'll get into for now. I think we should, with the time we have left, get into an actual session of the game so you guys can see how it plays. We'll take it from there. Okay, very good. So, yeah, I won't give you the full rundown because that might be a little bit boring. Let's just go ahead and get into it. So every session starts with a set of roles that are going to tell you kind of what's going on, okay? And these can be notated on your log. They can be written down on a session note page, which we're going to be creating. If you are a writer or you just love journaling while you play, you can keep a little notebook and write these session notes down as you go. One thing that we got a nice little write-up in Dicebreaker, which was very kind of them, and they use the word journaling RPG. Now, with a lot of these solitaire solo RPGs, people do love to journal. A friend of mine and I were talking about Ironsworn, which is a very popular GM-less, can be single-player game. And he said it's kind of like writing with dice. The game, the Broken Cask, can be played that way. So if that's your bag, you love just to take the inspiration from these games to kind of write stories as you go, that's totally an option. But it's not really designed as a journaling game. It's there if you want it, but that's not the goal. Okay, so if you are totally into that, this is all explained in the book as well. And you just go for it. But if you're looking more to have more casual time, you just want to kick back and play and roll some dice, that's an option too. That's what this is for. If you're looking to write down all your details and produce some fiction, you're going to want to either use the session notes or, even better, kind of bring your own journal to the table. So like I said, every round, every session starts with a series of rolls that are kind of setting the scene, right? So this is the exterior shot of your inn. This is the montage at the beginning of the movie, if you like, where we kind of get to get a feel for what's going on, what the seasons are, things like that. So we start with just that, actually, to find out what the season is. So I'm going to roll 1d6 to find out what the season is. It is the fall. The leaves begin their turning, and there's a chill in the air. Let me write that down so I don't forget. I'm just going to write it right here. It does actually come back at some point in the session. It'll affect some of the festivals and things like that that could be happening. All right, what's the weather like? The weather is, of course, extremely hot. We got a heat wave out here in the middle of the desert. And then the last few of these really result in some kind of mechanical bonus. So the first one is the mood. It is slow enough to make one drowsy. So we have our first disadvantage happening. So the drowsiness, the lack of activity has given us a disadvantage on our next body test. So -1, be forward. And if you're not familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse, forward just means on your next roll. So the next task that demands we roll against our body stat, then we're going to take a -1 disadvantage. All right. The last one we're going to do is to find out what's been going on since our last session. So this is our session 1. So when it comes to finding out what happened last time, you can skip this one if it doesn't sit well with your your head canon. But for me, I kind of imagine, I think the Flying Wolfin has been here for a little while. In fact, I really think that Lark Trollhorn, Mr. Trollhorn, bought this with some of the money he took, maybe from his family. We're not here to judge. That he should have spent in magic school, skipped town, went to the desert, found this inn, and said, I'll buy it. So I think this inn is actually well established. With that in mind, we're going to roll to kind of find out what's been going on since the last time we visited. I rolled 4, which says gnomes dug a hole right through your bar, quite accidentally. They offer 2d6 to settle up. Okay, so I actually made 2d6 gold, I should say. So they actually made a little bit of money for us. Okay, just checking the chat settings there. So we got 2d6 gold. These gums are incredibly nice, which earns us 6, which puts us at about 23 gold. Of course, I only brought the d20, so I don't have to remember that. Okay. The final thing you can roll when you're starting a session is to find out if there's some kind of story thread happening. So like I said, there's some people who really enjoy the fiction aspect of this and treat it almost like a writing prompt. And so that's kind of there for you guys. It's a 2d6 roll with 11 options to get your imagination going, especially if that kind of continuity is important to you. So I'm actually going to go ahead and do that. I'm not going to write it down, but I'll kind of keep it in the back of my brain. So the story thread for this section includes relatives or friends of a staff member visiting and making a real fuss. So I'm going to jot that down, actually. So I do actually kind of like that. I don't like writing all that stuff down. It's not for me. If I'm going to write, I'm going to write. But having this stuff in my mind helps to enrich what's going on. Okay, we did it, team. We made it. We're actually here in the main action of a session of the Broken Cask. I'm going to need to wet my whistle here. And essentially, every time you take an action, you got 2 options. You can roll to find out what happens. I'll tell you what that means in a second. Or you can choose a special innkeeper task. So when you roll to find out what happens, it's a 2d6 roll, which is going to generate an event, okay, which we'll see in just a second. If you've ever played 4 Against Darkness, that was kind of the inspiration, because every time you are going on a dungeon crawl in that game and you go into a new room, you roll to find out what happens. So that's kind of where the inspiration for that came from. The special innkeeper tasks are there when you want to take matters into your own hands. You're not waiting around to see who comes in the door. You are going to, maybe you're going to expand your inn here, build some new rooms. You're going to train these layabouts that I've hired somehow. Maybe you're going to go shopping, that kind of thing. And you want to know what? I think the best thing we could do is going to be to get these. I mean, we got some dregs here, gang. I'm not real pleased with the staff, the level of professionalism for my staff right about now. So I'm going to keep fussing with my setup here. And I think what I'm going to do, especially because I've got my ability that lets me train cheaper, I'm gonna do some training for these guys. Now, the trouble is, when you're running an inn in the middle of the desert called the Flying Wolf and you're a magic school dropout, people don't always listen to you. So when you choose this action, you spend some money. Cost you 3 gold in my case to do this. So I went from 23 back down to 20. And then you roll just to kind of see how your staff takes it. Okay, because maybe it was a late one last night. We don't know exactly what's going on. Elves aren't the best listeners. So we're going to roll to find out how well this training is taken. I mean, let's be real. We're living in the age of Zoom. You can't always be expected to pay attention. My staff was. All right. So let's talk about how this works. 6, I got real lucky there. 6 is the only option when you roll to train your staff that lets everybody improve. So what do we mean by improve? Improve is basically a level up. Which brings us to the question of experience points. So as you're playing, if your staff hits at least 1 success, they get to mark XP. Again, PBTA, right? Shout out Lumply Games. Yeah, Lumply Games, if you're watching, we know you are. Hit me up. I'm right here. Anyway, you get to mark XP. Once you get 3 through that or various other trinkets you pick up along the way, you get to improve, which is level up. We got real lucky with this training sesh where we get to level up everybody. So when you level up, you can choose. Do you want to give them more morale or do you want to improve a stat? And for Ella, the laureled hunter, the choice is clear. We can't have a negative stat. That's just not a good look. And she's going to get us into some trouble. So we're going to bump her mind stat up from -1 up to 0. Okay. For Takanos, I mean, your boy's got 1 morale. It's looking pretty rough. So he's not going to last long. When the drinks start flying and the sweat starts running and he's out there in the garden, we got to keep him on his feet. So we're going to give him 1 morale. So once again, when you improve your staff, you can either bump up a staff or a stat or give them extra morale. We're going to give our halfling friend here a little bit more morale. Excellent. All right, that's getting me I'm feeling a little more comfortable. I mean, it's our first day here. It's our first stream of the game. I'm a little nervous about what's going to happen, but knowing these guys are a little bit improved makes me feel a little bit better about our chances. So what do we want to do next? So here's what I'm thinking. Questing is a great way to make money in this game. But you can't quest if you don't have a hero. Heroes can be hard to come by. What you can do is attract some mercenaries. So I'm tempted to upgrade my guest rooms to attract those dirtbag mercenaries. I mean, they're degens, let's not lie. But they want to come to a fine inn. They're not going to settle for basic guest rooms. Why not? We're going to hold off on that. Let's go. I want to see you guys see the events table in action. Okay. So when it's time to find out what happens at your inn, you roll 2d6, add them together, and consult your roll table, or the events table, the almighty events table. This one right here. Work in progress. All right. So we rolled 5, which tells us that we are having some kind of service is happening, a special service. This is not just the locals coming in for a pint. This is something remarkable is happening, or a little bit out of the ordinary. So I'm going to scroll down to the service table. It's another 1d6 roll to find out what happens there. Shout out 4 Against Darkness. Okay, so I've rolled a 3. It's a Knight's Tea. Oh, man. Okay. So the Knight's Tea here, is an H4 task, which means you got to roll a 4 against your heart stat. Not too bad, but I'm a little nervous. I'm a little bit nervous. If we hit the whoever did the event, either Ella or Takanos gets +1 forward on their next heart roll, which is great. I mean, you provide great service to a bunch of knights, you're going to feel pretty good about yourself. Otherwise, they lose morale. Whew, I'm getting nervous, guys. Okay, so we're going to send Ella out there. All these knights are hanging around at this table. They're very polite, but they expect good service. The tea is pretty hot. The company is even better, but we got to make sure Ella can pull this off. So let's see. We're going to roll for Ella to see if she can complete this service to the satisfaction of our good knight friends. But I got to roll a 3. She has no help. I have no items yet. I probably should have gone shopping. We're going to see what happens here. Okay, very good. We got lucky. We rolled a 4. That's a 4. Whoop. +1, which is her heart stat, which is a 5. So we're in the clear. She takes +1 heart forward, which I'm going to note here on my log. I'm going to write Ella next to it so I don't forget who that's for. So that's good. So she's working with a +2, basically. Okay, that worked out pretty well. So I'm going to do what I said I was going to do earlier, which is to go shopping. So this is one of those special tasks I mentioned before. It costs you 5 gold. Usually it's worth it. Okay, so you spend 5 gold to head on down to the market. I don't know what kind of market is near the Flying Wolf Inn, because we said it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I have a feeling that maybe one of our friends is going to be gone for a while. Hopefully they'll survive their trip through the desert. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So we slap 5 gold into the hands of our unsuspecting staff member. I don't know. That's another thing that I mentioned in the book. These 2 guys that I've rolled up, they're not necessarily the only people working for me at the time. They're just the only 2 I can use. So if in your mind you've got, a whole slew of people who working for you in the background, or maybe you just love rolling up characters, you can do that. But for today, we're going to send our lowly gardener out shopping. So once we go shopping, we spend our 5 gold. So we're down to 15 gold here. Stick it in his hand and say, "Go forth, slow coach, and bring forth bargains." It's helpful if I could find it. There we go. There we go. And then we roll on our market table to find out what exactly is going on with good Takanos. Let's see. Okay, we got a 5. Okay, this is good. A dwarf was eager to get rid of some building supplies for some reason. Luckily, it's enough to upgrade a room right now, not build a new one. So let's talk about what that means. When it's time to upgrade your inn, you might build a new room. Okay, so as you can see, let me make sure I got this on camera here. Yeah, you guys, let's slide this over so you can see it better. That should be 15. Get out of there, you. Okay, so when you upgrade your room, your inn, I should say, you start with a common room. That's about it. That's about all you start with. With that common room, you can upgrade it. This should be checked off, actually. You start with a small tavern as a default. And then you can upgrade that, and it's going to give you different kinds of advantages. I know it's probably kind of small on your screen, but like, for example, if you upgrade to a full feasting hall, it lets you flip certain tasks. Flipping means if I roll a 5, I can then flip it to a 2. I don't know why I would do that. I'd probably flip from a 2 to a 5. So it gives you an advantage in that regard. It gives you more ways to interact with the game and with the rules and things like that. So you can build those. You can build new staff quarters, which allows you to hire more people because nobody wants to share a room with Takanos. Let's just be real. You can build on a kitchen, which gives you a bonus when you cook. You can build a brewery, which is going to upgrade your ability to brew stuff. So you got all these kind of different advantages you can generate by upgrading your inn, by building new rooms, I should say. But sometimes you can only upgrade. So like the guest rooms can be upgraded. The staff quarters can be upgraded, which again, these all give you different advantages. So for me, what I was saying before was it's time to quest. And so I'm going to take these building supplies that we were able to find at market. And I'm going to go ahead and upgrade my rooms. So I no longer have basic rooms. we're going to have some fine looking guest rooms. And what that says there is when you quest, you can use a mercenary. So we're no longer stuck waiting for a hero to show up. We can attract some mercenaries to come and work for us, which is probably what we're going to do next. Those guys don't work cheap. Okay, very good. What should we do next? I think we're going to find out what happens next again. And that was, again, just to kind of give you some design notes and let you know what I was thinking. That was an important part in thinking through. We didn't want to bloat the game. I didn't want to bloat the game and have way too many options and way too many tables so that it's just kind of impractical and unwieldy. I didn't want everything to be stuck and relying on chance. I wanted to make sure that the player had a certain amount of agency. So that's kind of where the two things come from. You've got the events table, which is what kind of random stuff is happening on your at your inn, and then you've got the special tasks, which allow you to take some agency and find out what you want to do. But now we are leaving it up to Lady Luck. Lady Luck says it's time to cook. So I rolled a 9. A 9 on the events table is a cooking task. We roll again on the cooking table to find out exactly what it is we're cooking. Oh boy, oh boy. We rolled our special delivery. So this one is a little bit tricky. So we're going to use our signature meal. It's time to cook that famous Flying Wolf and Hydra head salad my old ma taught me before I went out to magic school and promptly dropped out. But then we have to deliver it. So first things first. We have to roll to make sure we actually properly create this thing. We don't botch it. The task in this case is a B6. And we got -1 on our next body roll. So I think our goose is cooked here. I think it's time for old Blark Trollhorn to step in and make this, since it is my home recipe, really. So let's see what I want to do. Okay, so first of all, take the -1. Good news about it is I can erase it. We don't have to deal with it for now. So goodbye. Goodbye, -B, forward. Okay, so first of all, we roll to see if we actually create the thing. So what I'm going to do, this is one of your special actions. You, as the patron, or as the innkeeper, like we said, you have better stats. You can choose to act once per session, unless there's some other way to fudge it a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do, which means I get to use my stats. I get +2 when we roll against body, which is better than what we have. It's actually just a +1 because of the disadvantage we had. So I got to roll 5 or higher. Let's see what happens here. Woo! Woo! Okay. So we have successfully created the wonderful, world-famous Hydra head salad. Cheers. Trouble is now we got to deliver it. Okay. So only 2 tasks have you involve the Overland table, which is what I'm pulling up now. This is kind of a mishmash of our questing tables. So whenever you go questing, you roll to find out which region in our little world we've created we're going. You do the same thing when you have to make a delivery overland. So let me go ahead and roll to find out where exactly we're going. We are delivering Hydra head salad to the beautiful Rubber Tree Meadow. I don't know if you know about Rubber Tree Meadow. Beautiful glade. Gnomes go there to neck and are promptly robbed by Knoll brigands. It's a real problem, actually. And then the last thing we're going to do is to create one last task to find out if we make it. So let's see. We're going to send Takanos again. He had pretty good luck. So he's going to... Oh, this poor guy. Okay. So when you roll a 2 on this table, you have to pay a toll. A toll is a toll, and a roll is a roll. We don't get no tolls. We don't eat no rolls. And the modifier here, or I should say the alternate ability you can use, is to just pay these guys. So that's what we're going to do. We're not going to play around. We are going to go ahead and paid these guys here. So we paid them. We successfully deliver our Hydra head salad, and now we actually get tips. I don't know who we delivered this to. Who do you guys think we delivered it to? Maybe it was a lovely, I think it was a halfling family. You know, they paid a visit one time, and they just thought the Hydra head salad was so good. We have to Uber this stuff. We need a DoorDash of Hydra head salad to get us our stuff. So when we roll tips, hopefully these guys are good tippers. We use the tip table to find out exactly what we got, which is a 1d6 roll. We rolled a 3, which is 1d6 minus 1 gold, which is 1. But the good news is we get to roll again. 6. Woo! So when you roll a 6, you get a rare item, which is yet another table. You see what I'm talking about? Game bloat. You got to be careful. Otherwise, there's too many tables. You're going to lose your mind. All right, so we roll on the rare items table. These lovely halfling people have gifted us. Let's find out what it is. We rolled a 1, which is Blood Staff's Pendant. Advantage on heart rolls times 3. That's awesome. So I'm going to go to my inventory here. I think it's on here. Oh, no, it's not. It's actually on here. Okay, so it's advantage heart times 3. So the advantage keyword, it's, again, standard role-playing game fare. If you're playing D&D, any game really nowadays uses the word advantage to indicate that you get to roll twice and keep the better result. So that's what that means, which is good news because I've used my action as the innkeeper, and the rest of these jokers don't have great heart stats. So it's going to take a little bit of doing to make that happen. Okay. All right. So before I wrap things up, let me show you how questing works real quick, and then we'll end our session. Maybe we'll work in another task or two. I don't know. So let's talk about questing. So questing is a little bit, it's like a little side game. It plays much the same way. You roll to find out what happens. In our case, we have yet to meet a hero. But we did upgrade our guest rooms. So we can now attract a mercenary to see who's going to show up. Here's what that means, and here's why this is tricky. So when you use the hero hangs around. They are loyal to you. They level up. If they use weapons, they stick around so they can keep using the weapons and equipment you give them, so they are stronger. And again, the main thing is that they are able to level up, which makes them stronger. The mercenaries, not so much. So we're kind of stuck. We don't really have a lot of options right now. So when it's time to go questing and you have a mercenary, you have the ability to hire a mercenary. You roll to figure out exactly who you get. So let's find out who that is. Hey, rolled a 1. Things are looking up. Not really. So we rolled a 1 that gets us Flimgar, the mighty half-giant barbarian / alcoholic. Yikes. So dude is level 1. I'm imagining Flimgar just kind of strolling into the Flying Wolf Inn, knocking an unsuspecting hobbit out of the way. We say halfling, sorry, don't sue us, Soulsaints. Knocking an unsuspecting halfling out of the way, haughtily bellying up to the bar and asking for work. Well, we're in the mood to hire an adventurer, so we slip him 3 gold, and we say, guess what? We heard that there's something happening somewhere. So first thing we do is roll to find out where our mercenary, Flimgar the Mighty, is going. Oh boy. So what we do is we roll and then we add the adventurer's level. Okay, so in this case he's level 1, which is a little bit better for him because if he was any level higher, he would end up at the most terrible of terrible places, which you'll have to read the book to find out where that is. So we rolled a 6 plus 1 is a 7. The region table is telling us that old Flimgar is going to be heading to Frogmorn Castle. It is a dread place, Frogmorn Castle. Okay. And we're going to roll again. So the rule with Frogmorn Castle is that if Flimgar succeeds, we get to roll for loot at a +2 advantage. Well, what does that mean? When you're acting at the inn and you're rewarded, you will often just earn tips. Okay, so these will be like single-digit numbers of gold. When you go questing, you roll for loot. Everybody knows loot's better than tips. I mean, I think that's obvious. So that's the advantage of questing, is that you can earn a lot more gold for your inn by sending these poor suckers out into the unknown. And at this particular location, Frogmorn Castle, you roll, you get a +2 on that roll. The higher the roll, more loot, more gold, more joy. But our good friend Flimgar has to figure out a way through this mess first, because he is facing... Oh, that's not bad. A Lesser Phantom. He walks into Frogmorn Castle, and there, right at the very gate, before he steps into its swampy depths, he is attacked by a Lesser Phantom. Now, however, the Phantom is only a level 3 problem. Not a big deal. However, if he misses, he's going to become poisoned. Okay? Now, this begs the other question. What does it matter if a mercenary gets poisoned or exhausted? It doesn't. So, while hiring a mercenary is never going to get you a high-level adventurer for your quest, the also good news is they don't really belong to you. You're not their they're not your problem. So if they become exhausted or poisoned or something terrible happens to them, it's not really your problem. A hero, on the other hand, even though they can level up and equip gear and things like that, they can take damage. They can become ensorcelled, so they're ruining things that you're in. Mercenary, Flimgar comes home poisoned and sick. You can just kind of send him on his way. But let's find out exactly what's going on with Flimgar here. So he has to face the Phantom. We roll, we add his level to find out if he survives and is even successful. He's a level 1. This task is a level 3. So we got to roll a 2 or higher to make it hit. Come on, big money. Perfect. 3 + 1 is 4. Flimgar, the mighty, is on his best behavior. Maybe he's like Archer or something, where after a few, he's actually performing a little better. He defeats the Phantom and comes home back to the inn with a certain amount of loot. Let's find out exactly how much loot our fella gave us. This is a 2d6 roll +2. That's a 4 + 2 is 6. He found a sack of 1d6 gold. Come on, big money. 4. Okay, that's not so bad. Luckily, Flimgar is an honest sort, so he gives us our 4 gold without much fuss. Here's the thing. There's an optional rule in the book, which you might enjoy if you're a crazy person, which involves one last roll if you're using a mercenary. Some people like to play dangerously. Some people like to keep it lively, in which case you can roll again. If you roll a 1, Flimgar's out the door with your gold. Mercenaries can't be trusted. So that's another feature of the book. We've got little optional rules and sidebars here and there to give you some ideas about how you might want to make your game extra spicy or turn it down a little bit. Okay, let's do one last events roll, and then we're going to wrap things up here. Let's find out what happens next. I've actually been very lucky on the dice, so it must be you guys watching at home. Thank you. Okay, we've rolled a 7, which means it is time for that most glamorous of innkeeping tasks, cleaning up disgusting rooms. All right, so we rolled a 7, which gives us a cleaning task. Now we have rolled a 1, which is tidying up the disgusting rooms. Maybe something interesting is going to happen. I think it's time to, let's see. No, we don't have an advantage on, yeah, we got a heart like crazy. Okay. Takanos, my man. I'm going to need you to clean up that room, that troll. I don't know if he was sick or something, if that's just how trolls are, but I'm going to need you to go and clean it up. So his body stat is a 1. We roll again. There's really no way for us to fail this because he's going to get a +1. So even if we get the old-fashioned crit fail and roll a 1, 1 + 1 is 2. We're good. So we're absolutely fine. Okay. We roll a 5. +1 is 6. That is a hit. According to the table, we're going to roll for tips. We rolled a 3 for 6. Even though I made this game, I can't remember what that means. So a 3 is 1d6 minus 1 gold. So that's 3. So, they made a huge, disgusting mess, but they were kind enough to leave a nice big tip on the nightstand there for us. Now, when you clean these rooms, there's one last little rule for this particular roll that we've just made, which is roll for your tips and then roll 1d6. If you roll a 1, you have found a special item. We didn't roll a 1. We didn't get that special item. What are you going to do? All right. So there's still a lot more we could do. Let me just point this out. All of our staff are still in good health. Nobody's running low on morale. We've got 17 gold. We're really actually in good shape. As I said, I'm rolling a lot better than I usually do. Those of you who've played games with me before know I'm not the best roller, but for some reason tonight we're doing okay. However, I don't want to make this video too long, so we're going to end things now. So when you end a session, a few things happen. Mostly, any kind of temporary effects go away. In our case, we actually get to keep these advantages, thankfully. Obviously, all the upgrades we made, all the gold we have gets to be kept. So I'm going to jot down 17 on our gold thing so that we know for next time what we got to do. And because we're ending the session on our own terms and kind of closing up shop for the day, we're really safe. However, if you there's some kind of event that you roll that closes your inn prematurely, you have a chance of suffering some consequences. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with that today. We just get to end our session, close the doors on the Flying Wolf Inn, and say goodnight. There's a lot more to the Broken Cask that we didn't really get into. We didn't even get to the prestige system. We didn't really get to talk about heroes and regular patrons or all the other cool stuff you can buy at the market. But hopefully this whets your appetite. As I said, our Kickstarter is running through the end of next week, next Friday, which I believe is the 23rd. So again, if this game piqued your interest, consider backing. If you have any questions, like I said, if you're on YouTube, you can leave a comment in the doobly-doo. And otherwise, you can message me on Kickstarter. You can find all of our products on shorelessskies.com. Short of that, thank you so much for watching, and have a great time.